You're about to hear the unluckiest nap in history, and yes, it's exactly as painful as it sounds. You're looking at Ann Hodges, asleep on her couch in Sylacauga, Alabama. She has no idea what's coming through her roof. A rock from outer space, 9 pounds of it, smashes through the ceiling, bounces off her radio, and hits her square in the hip. She wakes up screaming, bruised black down one whole side of her body. And that's the easy part of this story. Because within hours, this quiet house is surrounded by police, reporters, and a small crowd of strangers. What happens next to Ann Hodges is going to cost her more than a bruise ever could. By the end of this, the rock will have more rights to itself than she does. Let's back up, because this thing had already survived a trip most objects never make. It started out as a chunk of an asteroid drifting through space for who knows how long. Then, on November 30th, 1954, it hit our atmosphere doing thousands of miles an hour. It broke apart as it burned, and pieces scattered across 3 states. Witnesses in Georgia and Alabama saw a fireball brighter than the sun streak overhead. One piece kept falling, straight toward a little mill town called Sylacauga, and straight toward a woman who had no idea her afternoon nap was about to make history. The rock crashed through the roof, ricocheted off that big wooden radio, and caught her resting on the couch. Doctors later said if it had hit her head instead of her hip, she likely wouldn't have survived. So in the strictest sense, she got lucky. But luck, it turns out, has a way of running out fast in this story. Because the second that meteorite hit, it stopped being just a rock. It became something everyone suddenly wanted a piece of, literally. The US Air Force showed up first, saying they needed it for study. They took it away for testing before Ann had even finished seeing a doctor. Meanwhile, the story exploded across the country. The woman hit by a meteorite from the sky. Reporters camped outside her house for days. Her husband, Eugene, couldn't even get through his own front door without a microphone in his face. And here's the strange part. Nobody was quite sure who actually owned the meteorite. Was it Ann's, since it hit her house? Or was it her landlord's, since technically the house, and the sky above it, belonged to someone else? That question was about to turn into a legal fight uglier than the bruise ever was. Here's the twist nobody saw coming. The government actually gave the rock back. Turns out, after they studied it, the Air Force decided it wasn't worth keeping. Public pressure helped too. People thought it was only fair Ann should have it. For a moment, it looked like this story might have a happy ending. But her landlord, a woman named Bertie Guy, had other plans. Bertie argued the meteorite fell on her property, so it belonged to her, not her tenant. She even offered to settle if Ann would just hand it over. Ann refused. She'd been hit by the thing. She wasn't giving it up without a fight. So Bertie sued her. A meteorite lawsuit, in a town of about 7,000 people, became the biggest thing to happen there in years. Reporters loved it. Lawyers loved it even more. And Ann Hodges, the woman who nearly died on her own couch, spent over a year fighting just to keep the rock that hit her. The case dragged on and on. Legal fees started piling up faster than the meteorite was ever going to be worth. Eventually, Ann and Bertie settled out of court. Ann paid Bertie $500 to keep the meteorite that had already cost her a hospital bill and a year of peace. $500 in 1954 was almost half a year's rent. She'd survived a meteorite strike and then had to buy the meteorite back. You'd think that would be the strange part of the story. It isn't. Because by the time she finally owned it, the meteorite wasn't worth much to anyone but museums. No collectors were lining up with cash. The moment had already passed. And the fame that came with getting hit by a rock from space didn't pay a single bill. The letters and reporters stopped coming almost as fast as they'd arrived. Her marriage, already strained, started to crack under all of it. Some neighbors treated her like a celebrity. Others thought she was cursed. Imagine surviving something that should have killed you and having people cross the street to avoid you instead. The stress started showing up in her health. Doctors at the time didn't have a name for what she was going through. 9 pounds of rock had fallen out of the sky and hit exactly one person on the entire planet. Her. And the sky wasn't done deciding how much that would cost her. Here's a number that still stuns people today. This is the only known case in recorded history of a meteorite hitting a human being. One person on one couch in one small town, out of billions of humans on Earth. The odds were so small that scientists still use her name as the textbook example. Ann Hodges didn't ask for any of it. She just wanted to finish her nap. But being the only person on Earth this ever happened to came with a strange kind of price tag. Her health kept declining through the following years. She and Eugene eventually separated. The woman who survived a direct hit from space couldn't survive what came after it. In 1972, Ann Hodges died in a nursing home. She was 52. Not from the meteorite, from the years of struggle that followed it. And here's the detail that makes people go quiet when they hear it. She eventually donated the meteorite to a museum, for free. After a lawsuit, a settlement, and $500 just to keep it, she gave it away. She said she just wanted people to stop asking her about it, which might be the saddest sentence in this entire story. Because here's the thing, nobody tells you about surviving the impossible. Sometimes the world doesn't celebrate you for it. Sometimes it just uses you up. The Air Force studied her rock. The lawyers argued over her rock. The museum eventually got her rock. Everyone got something out of it, except the woman it actually hit. And that house in Sylacauga still stands today, roof patched, story mostly forgotten. Most people who drive past it have no idea what happened inside. The meteorite itself sits quietly now, behind glass, at the Alabama Museum of Natural History. 9 pounds of space rock, older than the planet it landed on. It traveled farther than any human ever has, just to end a nap in Alabama. And it's still the only meteorite in history confirmed to have hit a living person. Scientists have calculated the odds of it happening again, and they're almost nothing. You have a better chance of winning multiple lotteries than getting hit by a falling space rock, which makes what happened to Ann Hodges almost impossibly rare. Rare enough that even NASA still references her case today. But being famous for the impossible didn't make her life any easier. It just made it public. And here's the part that really should make you angry. Nobody ever compensated her for the medical bills, the lawsuit, or the year she lost. The government studied her case for free. The museum displays it for free. Ann Hodges got a bruise, a lawsuit, and a $500 bill. That's the same $500 she paid just to keep the rock that hit her. The single most improbable event ever recorded, and it barely helped her at all. There's something almost darkly funny about a woman suing over a rock that already tried to kill her. The universe throws a 9-pound rock at her, and humanity's response is a legal fee. It's the kind of story that sounds made up, until you see the museum case yourself. The dent it left in her hip healed in weeks. The dent it left in her life took a lot longer. If you're keeping score, the odds of this happening to anyone else are close enough to zero to ignore. So no, you don't need to worry about your own couch tonight. But somewhere in a quiet Alabama museum, that 9-pound rock is still sitting there. Proof that the sky picked exactly one person out of everyone who's ever lived, and it was her. If this story left you a little stunned, that's the whole point of this channel. We dig up the true stories history barely remembers, the strange, the unlucky, the almost unbelievable. So subscribe. A new animated history documentary drops every Saturday. Because history's got a lot more stories this strange still waiting. Ann Hodges never asked to be famous, she just wanted her nap back. Instead, She became the answer to one of the strangest trivia questions on Earth, the only known person ever struck by a meteorite. And she paid for that title in ways nobody warns you about. Next time you look up at a clear night sky, remember, the odds are basically zero. But basically zero isn't the same as impossible. Somewhere out there, another rock is already falling. It probably won't hit anyone. Probably. And if it does, you can bet the paperwork will be worse than the bruise. That's the story of the unluckiest nap in history and the price of surviving it. Next week, we're telling the story of a disaster so strange, even the survivors couldn't agree on what they saw.